You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, YNR fans. Well, Sharon Newman has gone and ruined her future, and it's hard to imagine how she'll exist in Genoa City once the truth is out. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and I want to talk about the outcomes for Sharon. Anywhere from a prison to a padded cell, or even worse, are they going to write out Sharon Case at the end of this? We're going to dive into all of it. So Chance Chancellor is at Sharon's door this week with questions about Heather Stevens' death. And of course, Cameron is right there coaching Sharon every step of the way to set up Daniel Romalotti for her heinous crime. And let's face it, what Sharon did was horrible. She murdered Heather by blunt force trauma, taking her from the man that loves her and taking her from her daughter, Lucy Romalotti. Sharon has destroyed a family because of a twisted vendetta to punish Daniel for something he's not guilty of. He did not kill Cassie Newman. He wasn't driving. Sharon's daughter was. That's why Daniel wasn't convicted or sent to prison. But in her head, there's this fixation. Meanwhile, Sharon is definitely guilty of a very bad crime, something that in the state of Wisconsin could mean a 60-year sentence for second-degree murder because it wasn't premeditated. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. And a 60-year sentence at her age would be, in effect, life behind bars. So as it stands, Cameron told Sharon, you better lie to Chance, and she did. Even though she said she didn't want to, Sharon even told Cameron that she was thinking about going back to Daniel's apartment and taking away the evidence she planted there, but that wicked voice in her head convinced her to stick to the plan. So Sharon first told Chance a tiny bit of truth. She said she was with Heather the night she died. That's true. And then came the lies. Sharon said Heather told her she had a big fight with Daniel. So she is hoping Chance will poke around Daniel's place, find the bloody rags, Heather's phone, and her keys, and arrest Daniel. But let's be real, that's not going to fly long term. For one thing, he has a solid alibi. Sharon did see Heather the night she died, but Lucy and Daniel weren't at home. She didn't know where they were, but they were out at a movie. And then the father and daughter came home together to an empty apartment. Plus, Daniel's phone signal proves where he was. And he also has Lucy to alibi him. Not only that, but Daniel was with Lucy when they got the initial text from Heather's phone saying she wasn't coming home, the one that Sharon sent from her place. And bottom line, he has a rock solid alibi and really no motive. The only one who has brought up anything is Sharon. And yeah, Daniel's done a few sketchy things in his past, but he is not a woman beater, Plus, Chance will know once he asks around that Daniel has not been acting sketchy or suspicious, just concerned. And Lucy was also with her dad when they got the text from Sharon pretending to be a stranger who found Heather's phone. And then suddenly that phone is in Daniel's apartment, right? So Chance heard about all this from both Lucy and Daniel, so there's just no doubt there. And to be fair, Sharon is not in her right mind. She carried out a crime of passion. She did what I think is probably going to turn out to be a sloppy cleanup job. She dumped Heather's body, and she's done, I think, kind of a mediocre job of framing him. I don't think it's going to be too long before Sharon is caught and arrested, and then her fate is going to unfold. Late next week on Michelle Stafford's special 30th anniversary episode, I suspect Phyllis will confront Sharon, and it should be pretty soon after that when Chance reads her rights and slaps the cuffs on her. But there is no guarantee that Sharon will go to prison. I mean, in fact, she really shouldn't, all things considered. Let's talk about her possible outcomes. I'm assuming the first consequence will be Chance arresting Sharon. From there, though, it's going to get more complicated. Nick Newman is probably going to hire Michael Baldwin to represent her. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Christine Williams repping her because she adored Heather And she and Daniel's dad, Danny Romalotti, are going to be stunned to hear that the love of Daniel's life was murdered and that Sharon tried to frame him. Michael will likely go for an insanity defense, even if he's not her lawyer. Whoever that lawyer is going to be, that'll be probably what they do. And Sharon's family and her doctor can certainly testify that she had pre-existing mental health issues that are ongoing. But here's where it gets a little problematic, because Sharon said she was taking her meds all along, and Mariah checked and confirmed. And Sharon was trying very hard to pretend to be normal. So that's what most of the people in town saw, and that could be problematic at the trial. Basically, Michael will have to prove Sharon couldn't control her behavior and didn't understand the consequences. That's the rule of law for an insanity defense. But really, kind of only half of that is true, because Sharon understood the consequences, because then she took so many steps to cover her tracks and plant evidence to frame Daniel. So while the murder wasn't premeditated, that stuff after the fact is definitely very intentional acts to avoid consequences. And it's not understanding the consequences that's important to get you off on an insanity plea. And what she did speaks to clarity of mind to some extent. And I mean, viewers know she was not sane at the time, but what passes in court is another matter. And if Michael is repping her and he succeeds with this insanity plea, Sharon would be remanded to a psychiatric facility instead of a prison. If you're found not guilty by reason of insanity, and you're sent to a psych facility, it is generally for an undefined length of time, basically until the doctors decide that Sharon is not a threat to herself or the public. And that could literally mean years in a secured psychiatric hospital or facility. And if Michael doesn't win in court with the insanity plea, Sharon could be convicted and sent away for decades for this murder. And it's extremely rare in the real world, not the soap world, for a defendant to walk out of court after being found not guilty by reason of insanity and let roam around free. They're sent somewhere. But it's a soap, so, we can't speak to real world consequences. But if that happened and she was set free for some reason, Sharon would be a town pariah, and Daniel might want revenge on her, and Phyllis certainly. But in the end, my biggest concern is that Young and the Restless is going to either write off Sharon Case after this or push her back to like recurring or occasional recurring, because these consequences that she is definitely facing mean years and years in prison if it goes that route, or, months and months in a psych facility, if not years. And I don't see any way that Sharon's going to get away with it. And the consequences she's facing just don't lend themselves to her getting a lot of screen time once all this plays out. So I just really hope that Sharon Newman murdering Heather isn't Sharon Case's swan song and we lose her from Young and the Restless.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.